Good morning or good afternoon or evening, depending on where you guys are all at. My name is Jacqueline Surin. I am a technical trainer at Sumo Logic, and I've been with Sumo for about 2 years now. And I am talking to you from the lovely state of Colorado, from the Rocky Mountains. I'm going to go ahead and put in a little information in the chat. I see somebody already has something, Stacy added a little something in there. So I'm just curious, where is everybody else from? If you would put that into the chat and also take a look at the poll, let us know how long you've used Sumo Logic, and I'll be sharing that information. Oh, Florida, Dallas. Oh, wow. All right, I need to get to Florida. All right, I think all of us need a little trip somewhere else, right? We've all been stuck a little bit, not getting out too much. Massachusetts, Orlando, wow. Greetings from the UK. Well, greetings back to you. Toronto, Indiana. Yeah, I used to work with a lot of people that went to Purdue. I don't know if you're a Purdue person, but that was a great college. Bangalore, India. Oh, lovely. I love India. I especially like all the different curry sauces. I mean, you just can't get the same spices here. Seattle, Italy. Well, welcome. Hello from Baltimore. Very nice. Wow, and more India. And Whitefish, Montana. Oh my gosh, I have 30 acres of land up in Montana, not far from Whitefish. So wonderful. Glad to hear that. Well, anyways, let me just give a little bit more of an introduction here. I advanced to one slide a little too far. This is Sumo Generalist Fundamental Certification that you have joined us for. And you have myself, Jacqueline Sovereign, talking to you from Colorado, as well as let Stacy, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm the Director of Education and Digital Nurture here at Sumo, and you're in for a treat. Jackie is a really dynamic presenter. She's going to get you with hands-on as soon as possible, but she's going to walk you through the product first. If you have any questions, I'll try and help you out in chat, but also feel free to ask Jackie. She loves good questions.
Excellent. Yeah, and so hopefully you have something to make it relaxing for yourself, because I know that you know, dedicating yourself to doing training is not always easy, and sometimes you have a lot of distractions, but hopefully we can make this as entertaining for you as possible, okay? So with that, let me talk a little bit about the course agenda, and then we'll get to the poll right after this. So the course agenda is going to be an overview of Sumo Logic, so you'll see that. Get my laser pointer here. You'll see our overview. I'm going to actually, in that overview, after showing you talking to a few slides, I'm going to give a quick demo, hopefully within about 10 minutes. And what we want to show you is featuring monitoring and troubleshooting. I mean, there's quite a bit I could demonstrate, but and come to more trainings if you'd like to see more of our technology. But monitoring and troubleshooting, I will go through that with you. And then hands-on labs. So as Stacy alluded, we are going to get right into doing activities. That's how we get you certified, is we take you through all these different hands-on labs, and then from that, you can take the certification test at the end. So the hands-on labs that we have for you is we start with, where's my data? How do I view it? How do I set up my data? Just the basics on data collection. Then we'll go into queries. So searching, parsing, analyzing your data. You'll learn how to set up a query. We'll also take you through how to set it up so that you can do the query with trending analysis. So there's some features in our tool that allow you to look at your data over time, and we'll be doing that in this training. And monitoring critical events. So you'll see how to actually be able to create a dashboard. So we'll create and modify a dashboard in order for you to have that observability, that monitoring capability. And then finally, when you're not able to watch the dashboards, we'll go through the basics of our alerts. So we'll create an alert, as well as you can see all the different types of alerts that we have in the system. And then the last 60 minutes, hopefully I'll finish in about 2 hours. And in the last 60 minutes of this 3-hour session, you can get certified. And the test is If you just follow along with what we're doing, do as many of the activities, if not all of the activities with me, then you should be all set to be able to get the certification at the end. Now, I want to talk about the poll and then talk about some Q&A stuff, as far as how we handled the training today. So let me go ahead and end the poll. It looks like the majority of you have been able to respond. And let me share the results with you so you can see what I'm looking at. So what I'm seeing here is with the question of how long people have used Sumo. So we know that you guys are representing India and Whitefish, Montana. That one really impressed me, I guess, because I have a place up there, San Diego, Toronto, all these great places. And in the UK, how long have you used Sumo, right? We're all located everywhere, but where have we, how much experience have we attained? So I'm seeing here about 10% have used it for more than a year, okay? So maybe you're trying to get recertified, or maybe you've never taken our certification, so welcome to that. For those of you that have been using it for more than 6 months, that's another 10%. And then we have about almost 30% have used it for more than 3 months, okay? So that's good. But we have a lot of people, the majority, over 50% haven't ever used Sumo. So you came to the right place, all of you, because we're going to be going through best practices. You'll see, for those of you that maybe have been using it for a while, you'll still pick up some best practices and probably some little gem that you didn't realize. All right, so welcome. All right, so that's very nice to see, where everybody's at. I'll be using polls. Let's talk a little bit about engagement here. I'll be using polls. There'll be a couple of more down the road in the training. And I'll also be looking at the chat. Now, Stacy is going to help by monitoring what's going on in the chat. So feel free to post things in there. All right, and I see that somebody's asking something. Yeah, great. So
I'll try and help you out with that, Josh. We'll see what we can do.
Excellent. Yeah, and Stacy will alert me if there's something that we want to bring to everybody's attention from the chat. So please chat away, okay? All right, so with that, let's go ahead and move on. So the first thing is to talk about Sumo, all right? So Sumo Logic is a continuous intelligence platform. It has key aspects for things significant like operational intelligence. So keeping your system up and running. If you see something like in a production environment that is down, you can quickly, with the dashboards and the queries that you'll set up and using our out-of-the-box tools, you can do operational intelligence and look for getting your system back up and running in short order. Security intelligence. So, my gosh, while I was doing training early this morning, just endless cyber attacks happening, as well as systems crashing for a variety of reasons from security breaches, right? So our security intelligence package is what this conference is all focused on. And fundamentals, I'll stay to the basics today. For those of you that are just new to our tool, I won't get down in the weeds of security in this training. But you do need to check out our other trainings that are going on all about our different platforms for security. And that will really help you with being able to detect things like brute force attacks, phishing link, malicious intent that's happened, and using our CrowdStrike under 9 intelligence. Business. I can't say how many times in the years that I've sat in meetings and we need to make a decision and we don't have the right data, or we don't have data at all. So being able to track your business intelligence, and you'll see that in the demonstration that I'm doing. And then global intelligence. I look at this twofold. I look at it as, one, we have packaged tools that do baselining. Because of our environment, it allows you to compare to others in the system anonymously, of course. And that allows you to do baselining. How am I tracking compared to the norms? And then also global intelligence, looking at your data worldwide, right? So wherever you're located, you do business probably even outside your country. So basically being able to track all of that activity and gather that global intelligence. So we look at it in this manner here when we look at our continuous intelligence platform offering. Is it's basically taking your data, our analytics, and using, of course, your people to track the information and to get the results from your data that you want to extract. So your data can be, as you can see going across here from left to right, it could be apps, microservices, cloud, as well as on-prem, with your infrastructure, SaaS environments, mobile devices, and of course, third-party systems. So all of your data, basically wherever it resides, you can pull it into Sumo. Then once your data is coming in, and we'll talk about that in the first lab that we do a little bit, about setting up your data and where you can view it. Then you use our analytics. So our analytics consist of the multi-tenancy environment, right? That gives us our baselining capability, as well as just the multi-tenant environment for you to utilize. It's scalable and elastic because it is built on the AWS platform. So it has a content delivery network that you can take advantage of that allows you to scale up or scale down. Like this past year, a lot of our customers had to make a lot of changes. Some of them needed to make them drastically, right? Because things were quickly changing. So that scale and elastic capability. There is machine learning, and I'll be demonstrating that today to you. You'll see that with our log reduce command that I'll be using. And API interface, so whatever you need to connect with, you can bring that into Sumo if it's not already one of our out-of-the-box apps. Advanced analytics. So you'll see a little bit today of that, but if you're really interested, I happen to be doing a SOC analyst training in the afternoon today, a couple hours from now, as well as there will be more trainings in the future. So you can get a hold of more of our capability on our advanced analytics, but I'll show you where the cheat sheet is so you can see all of our capability. And then I talked quite a bit when I was talking about security intelligence up here about our security and monitoring. But just to mention on top of that, if you're not familiar with our compliance features, we support all these frameworks. So if you're using SOC 2 or PCI, or you're trying to utilize a FedRAMP program, this is the place for you, okay? We have these templates. In fact, some of these templates have already been pre-built, so you can take advantage of them. Just reach out to your customer success contact at Sumo, and they'll make sure you get hooked up with that information for compliance. So security is, and monitoring of that security is part of the analytics. Then, of course, it works across all your different functions. So whether it's the DevOps, engineering, IT, or data scientist, whatever it might be, whoever the person's role is within your company, they can have access to the system and they can pull the relevant data to them that they need. So it works across all the parties within your company. Now, I want to mention, interrupt at any time. Your mics, you can unmute them if you would like to at any time and interject a comment or question. Stacy is, of course, tracking the chat, so keep those questions coming at any time you have a question. Now let's go into the demonstration. So this is high-level monitoring and troubleshooting demo that I'm going to give you. You'll get to see what Sumo looks like just from when I open it up, and you'll get to see the alerts. We're going to show that an alert would be if I'm not actually at the dashboard monitoring, right? I'm not going to be there 24/7 monitoring. So I need to be notified of critical events. So you'll see that we'll be able to send an alert out so that you'll be an indication of that some threshold or some series of events have met some requirement and an event has been triggered as an alert. Then from that alert, we're going to go and look at metrics. So metrics, if you're not familiar with those, metrics are basically giving you data relevant to some time period. So it's tracking that data over time. So you can look at metrics, they come in from Amazon, for example. So a lot of our modern apps like Kubernetes and Amazon provide a whole plethora of metrics that we might want to track what's going on to use as indicators. Metrics also come from our hosts, our servers. So you can actually look at things like network or CPU utilization or memory. And metrics can also be extracted from incoming logs. Some of our customers use that feature. And then logs themselves, after looking at the metrics, then the metrics tell us identifying what's going on, but now we need to drill down into the troubleshooting of why is it happening. So that's where we'll go down to the tracking of all the events that are happening in the logs. So that's a high level of what I'm going to be showing you. So let me go and give it a roll here. All right, so I would like you to just kind of go on this journey with me of pretend, okay? It's kind of fun actually to play a little pretend even as adults, right? So pretend that you're at this company, Travel Logic. And Travel Logic, if you can take a look here, tracks information, allows customers to come in and book for flights, hotels, and cars to manage their travel. And they can book, set up their requirements here for what their travel is and go ahead and book their travel. But this has a lot of underlying components, such as maybe Amazon, that has a lot of different services, microservices, right, that are running, that is very hard at times to keep track of all the dynamics of everything that's occurring, right? So we set it up so that we got this Slack within our webhook Slack, we got this alert. And I came in to work at Travel Logic and I saw on my prod 03 that I had this gateway response time outlier. And I can see that, besides the naming, I can also see the time that it came in. I get a description. It gives me that time range here in the time zone that you can set it up as a preference of what time zone you'd like it to show. And then it gives me a couple of links that I can actually click on to actually go into it. And so as an operator, I'm going to go in and take a look at what's going on in my system. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Now, before we get into the demo, I'm just going to back up here to the business overview just to show you a little bit more about the company so you're familiar with it. So here, if I want to look at it from a business intelligence perspective, I can look at this business overview. And this business overview just gives me these indicators, bar indicators of payment, tracking, application status, and what's going on with my website. You can also put text numbers in here, quantities if you prefer, to have those. Flights, hotels, here I can actually track with these lovely maps. The maps here, like if I look at my hotel bookings, I'll make this larger. You can actually make it full screen if you'd like to. I'll just pop it in and out so you can see. I can drill down into any specifics here. I can pan around and take a look at what's going on and investigate. So it helps me track in a visual chart here. So we have mapping is embedded in our tool, comes as a basic package. And then flight bookings, here we're looking at outliers. So here we're starting to track some anomalies, right? Outlier is one of our advanced operators. Let me click right here to make this bigger. So any of our panels you can enlarge, either full screen, like in maps, or in this case, you can just enlarge an individual chart. And here I'm tracking data of what's going on in the last 60 minutes. And I can actually see when an outlier occurs by these little pink triangles. It's a pink triangle or a circle if it's a metric. So you can actually see when it goes outside. Now, this is all your customization. You can set it up for whatever standard deviation thresholds you'd like to set. You can make this wider, or maybe one standard deviation, depending on what you're doing. So those are shown as indications. We can also track our business intelligence by looking at charts where we can look at like donut charts and track the different categories here of flights, hotels, and cars. We can look at our data over time. And we can also look at our data just in a text format. So this is just tracking our hourly bookings so we can kind of see how we're progressing. So this is an example of some business intelligence that a company might want to use, such as this pretend company Travel Logic that we're looking at. All right, so now let's get to the troubleshooting. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Travel Logic operational overview. And this is nice. I'm going to minimize this so I can make it a little bit larger for you so you can see it better. This allows me to look at all my system functionality going on, all my different microservices that are generating these panels. So I have my reporting modes, redish issues, content delivery network health, overall health, database issues, VPC. So here I'm just tracking at a very high level. So I noticed that my checkout services, right, because I had that Slack message that told me that I had some issues with my system, I can see that my checkout services, which is where customers make their payments, right, is it producing a whole bunch of errors, okay? So I'm going to start here. I'm going to just investigate because, that's dollars to my company. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the checkout services. And when I clicked on that, it opened up the services details dashboard with all these panels in it. And I'm just going to do a quick update because I probably have had it open for a little while just to make sure. So what I have here is I'm seeing my bookings in this first panel. I can see that I've had my successes for quite a while, and then all of a sudden it had some failures. And as I hover over, do you guys see the hot spotting within our dashboard? And I can see my failures, okay, that have occurred. So I'm showing here that the failure started around the half an hour. And then the errors for the last 7 days, this is another way that you could use for troubleshooting, which is using our advanced analytics of time compare operator. And what's cool about this is if I enlarge it here, is you can actually hover on it and you can see that this is today. So these are the errors today, but I've time compared back relative to the cyclic nature of my daily activity, right? So I had the errors a day ago, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and so on. And what's kind of cool, I like to show this feature, is you can actually toggle off in our legend the errors. So I can just toggle this off by clicking on errors, and it's zeroed out. And that shows me that, none of these other errors have occurred. And so I'm just, the errors I've isolated to today, that the errors just happened today. So it's just helping me with troubleshooting. I can also track the quantity of errors that are coming in from all the incoming logs on those checkout nodes. And you can see here's 2 different checkout nodes for prod 03 and the numeration of errors on the legend here, just a whole bunch that have occurred. Now, if you remember, that Slack message said something about latency. So these, of course, over here on the right side are both latency. Do you see it says gateway latency average and gateway latency delta? And what's nice is, sometimes we want to know the quantity so we can track it with a delta. And sometimes we want to actually see, were there anomalies detected with the outliers. So those can be very helpful. Now, all of this information is showing me that I have a problem around 9:30, okay, that started. So let's take a look at this top one. Let me enlarge this metrics on CPU and total memory that came in. And if I look at this, I can see if I hover over my memory usage, I can see that my memory usage looks just fine. It's just kind of, cycling through. So I have my memories fine. And as I hover over these different CPUs, there's several different resources coming in. I can see that right here around the half an hour, kind of starting at 9:25 and leading into 9:30, a spike occurs. In fact, another spike on another one also occurred. So 2 nodes are having issues and the metrics are indicating that. So I want to go and further investigate this, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into the underlying search query for this panel that generated this panel by just opening it right here. Do you see where I'm at the top right of this panel? Right here. I'm going to click on that. And that allows me to look at the metrics query. You can see the same visual. So just orientating you at the top, you have the visual. And you can see here is the spikes, those 2 spikes that we had. To produce this visual, it took these 2 lines of code, this one and this one here. And if you take a look at each one of them, they both have the production 03 namespace, and then one is looking at CPU and one is just looking at memory. And they're both aggregating their data a little bit differently. We're looking at an average here. And this one, for the memory, we're looking at quantizing it. That means we're putting the metrics into 1-minute buckets and then adding them up, okay? So with 2 lines of code, we produced all of this data up here. Now, the heat map up here at the top, that is what is going to connect our metrics with our logs. We call this unified metrics and logs. And we do that with this last command here at the bottom. Do you see where it says, this is our pointer to our data, okay? This is a source category, which is built-in metadata that we provide when you use our tool. And then you can set up these different pointers for it. So we're pointing to our prod 03 travel checkout. And then we're getting that data, and then we're doing a filter on it of just those incoming log messages that might have an error message inside them or an exception. So we're basically, if I didn't have this, I would see heat map going all the way across. But because I have this filter, it's only going to show me when I'm triggering in my incoming logs, error or exception are appearing. All right, so now I can see that right here, right at the time, around half an hour, I'm starting to get the heat map. And you see that it kind of changes its color intensity. It gets darker, kind of an orangey color, depending on how your computer shows it up. It's kind of an orange or reddish color. So it's lighter here, and you can see when I hover over, I get 212, and then when it gets darker, I got 296, and a little bit darker, I get 324, and then, you know, you can track the messages. So I'm going to go ahead and investigate my logs by just holding down my shift and clicking, and that opens up the logs for that particular segment that I clicked on, that particular time that I clicked on. So you can see the time that I clicked on is just a 1 minute unit of time. So I'm just looking at the logs from that 1 minute. And here's the logs down here. You get a nice histogram and then the actual data of the incoming logs. And I'll scroll through a little bit so you can see. Notice that we have 212 results. That means if I look through these 9 pages of incoming logs, there's 212 messages. And I can actually, you know, to debug this, I'm only looking at 1 minute at a time. I need to back up, right? So the first thing for troubleshooting is I probably want to get more data leading up to the spike, right? So what led up to the spike? So I'm going to widen this. I'll just go the last 60 minutes so that I grab a good window. And then error or exception is filtering out only those incoming logs that have error exception. And do you see they're highlighted down here, error? I don't probably have any exceptions showing up that I can quickly get to, right? But you can see that errors are definitely highlighted. So we want to actually widen this search because sometimes in my experience troubleshooting, the keyword error exception might not be in the problem, the culprit, right? So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and just run the query again. Now I've widened the time and I remove the filters. So now when I run it, it will be a lot more results, right? You can see here that I'm getting over 57,000 results, over 2,000 plus pages, okay? But you can see that it's no longer filtering, right? It's bringing in everything. So this way I don't leave any stone unturned. That's a euphemism. I don't miss something. All right, so now what am I going to do, right? Okay, so I have the incoming logs. I can see everything that's coming in from one of those checkout nodes that's having issues. So this is where it's really nice to use our machine learning capability. And do you see this right here, log reduce? I'm going to click on that. And what log reduce will do is it's basically a command that we're taking all of those incoming messages, and we're running them through. That's what this pipe is. It's basically passing the data from that to this command log reduce. And you can see it creates the signature tab. And the signature tab starts grouping all of those incoming messages into like formatted messages. Really cool, right? So it's basically, you know, this format here that if I scan across up until the asterisk is what is in common. And then the asterisk indicates as a wild card that they're unique. So you have over 6,000, I might even get up to 7,000. Yep, there we go. So it's still running. This kind of circles around until it's complete. When it's done, it'll say done right here, done gathering results. All right, so now what are we looking at? Once again, these are the counts for each of those messages, this over 56,000 some messages that are coming in, and it's putting them into like kind. It's organizing them for you, basically. It's giving you how many of them occurred over here. And once again, the asterisks here represent where they're unique. So whenever you see the asterisks. Now, come to one of our trainings, we'll get more into this, but you can actually pass on tribal knowledge with the relevance of the actions and do some customization. So that's more to come in another training that you can join. But what I want to do is troubleshoot, right? So I know that this problem is probably not these ones that are happening high number of times. So because I have this little arrow now here appearing, I can actually toggle it so that I can look at the lowest count. So when I click on that, now it brings up the lowest count. And I can look at these to try to figure out, are any of these, it's kind of the needle in the haystack, right? What is going on, in my system? So it looks like I had a processing error in my cart that could not be resolved. And it looks like I also had another issue with my processing cart that couldn't be resolved, pointing to pointing to my S3s, both of these. And then I noticed this one that I had an unexpected error, okay? And I got 5 of those that occurred. So I had that unexpected error that occurred. And I can see, that I'm having some issues. I also got this level found credentials issues. But then I noticed this one as I come through. This one occurred twice in the last period of time. And it's telling me that somebody did a reboot on the cluster. And it's telling me that they did it with the checkout node, version 1.14.dev. And that's a problem because this is a production environment. So somebody mistakenly uploaded the wrong software. And so that's causing everything to go haywire. Now I can do further investigations on this. You can actually click on these and you can go in and do further investigation by actually even getting the details and looking at surrounding messages. So you can actually look at messages. So you can use our capability to go in and get more refined information, looking at surrounding messages, for example, through your log reduce command. But for this time period, I can just go back now up here. What I figured out is I need to go back up here. And the way we resolve this is, besides going back and deploying the right version of software, we also put in this panel down here that shows the deployed versions. So here we're tracking the deployed version. So anytime that a version changes, we're putting that and tracking it. So it's right here at the operator level as a quick reference for them. So within a short period, that's how you can troubleshoot using the monitoring capability, all that observability that we give you. Let me pause. Any questions on the demonstration?
We're good. We just have a lot of excitement about getting into the labs.
Well, then let's just two more slides and we're there. All right. So, but that's great. All right, so let me go ahead and just talk about Sumo at a very high level. This is what we're going to be doing in the activities. You're actually going to experience 1, 2, and 3 of our data flow. So 1 is basically collection, data collection. This is our collectors and sources where they're represented. We're going to show you how you can view them and also talk a little bit about their capability. And then once your data is coming into the system, then you move on to searching and analyzing, right? So this is where the operators and the charting that we've been looking at using the different operations like log reduce and the charting capability, the different ways that you can create visuals. And then once you have your visuals, then you can put those charts into dashboards, as well as you can set up alerts in the system. So talking just a little bit more about collectors, this is a very busy chart, I have to admit, but just stay with me. Up here at the top is Sumo Logic. And what we're trying to show here is the way that you can bring in your data. And so to get you kind of, to answer a whole bunch of your questions, probably because you're probably sitting there go, well, does it bring in this kind of data? So hopefully that will answer it. So I'm going to start with, we have 2 different collectors. You see installed collectors on the left and hosted collectors on the right. And with these collectors, my pointer here, with these collectors, I'm going to start with the hosted. Hosted is things like Amazon or Azure or GCP. It can be your content delivery network like Akamai, or maybe you're using Netscope security. All of those would be set up through a secure HTTPS connection, and then Sumo hosts that collector in the cloud. Excuse me. And then API interface, we mentioned that we have that capability. So this could allow you to bring in your own relevant information from Salesforce, G Suite. If you're using single sign-on and multi-factor authentication, those can also be brought in as data through the API. Now, moving on to installed collectors. The big difference with an installed collector and a hosted collector is an installed collector is something that you would have to, somebody at your company would have to set up. We have training on this. You can come to any of our other certifications like administrator training, and we'll show you how to set those up in just a few minutes through a couple labs. And the way these work is they're through a secure HTTPS connection, passing your data through the firewall. That's what this little icon represents. Now you can do it through local files, where then you would create install a lightweight Java agent on each dedicated machine, and then they would each be pulling the data from those machines. Or you can do more of a distributed, which we call centralized collection, where you might just have one Sumo collector, lightweight Java agent that you've downloaded and configured, and it might have a variety like syslog files and Windows and different kinds of remote collection, as well as a node that you might want to also collect data from. So you can do either type of hosted collectors or installed collectors. So this is more your on-prem infrastructure, and this is more of your modern apps. All right, and then of course we're showing container management here through a secure HTTPS connection. So if you're using Docker or Kubernetes, those can also be brought in. Now the big takeaway is if you have data in text form, you can probably bring it into Sumo, not usually a problem, okay, through some of these mechanisms here. All right, so now we're going to get into the training. So let me go to that slide. All right. Now I'm going to keep this one small for just a second.
One question from Adrian, and he was just asking, do the agents auto update themselves, or is the collection evergreen? Does it always bring in data, or does it have to be restarted? Oh, I'm sorry, Adrian, I misread that. You're asking, do we update the collectors? And we do that with collector updates. You have to do that manually.
Yeah, you have to install the collectors. It's really easy. Just to show you, I'll show you once you guys are logged in where that's at. If you just remind me if I forget. All right, so I want to copy this and paste this into the chat so you guys have this. Oh, I think I sent it directly to somebody. Let me change that to all. All right, Stacy got it. All right, so this is how you're going to log in. And it's really simple. I'm going to show you how to do it through an incognito window that you can use either a new private if you're like in Firefox, but if you're in Chrome like me, then new incognito window. The reason why I'm showing that is it's your choice. You could just open up another tab if you want, but if you use an incognito window, then you could leave this training environment open while you take the certification in your own Sumo instance. So if for those of you that might want to leave the training environment, then use the private or new incognito window, which you usually find by clicking on these three vertical details icons up here, and then new incognito window. If you're using like Firefox, I think they call it a new private window. All right, so let me make this a little bit smaller so I can have this all up here. And we can just follow. So then now what you're going to do is just copy and paste from the chat window. Trying to click out of that. Copy and paste that service.sumologic.com. And then it'll ask you for the email. You do need to customize it. So when you take that training analyst, so if I type the training plus analyst, I need to actually select 3 digits from 1 to 999. I'm just going to go with 992. Probably nobody's using that one as an example. And please put yours in chat so that other people, don't happen to use the same interface. That way it'll be a little bit nice for you. And then our password changes monthly. We want you to come and use our training environment, but we do need to keep it, rotating through passwords. So just want to get mine spelled right here. I should have cut and paste, right? Security 21. And now I have that. And then I can just sign on. Just click the sign on right here. Now, before I do that, I'm going to start a poll. I told you I was going to use polls a couple times. I want to find out from you. Let me know if you're logged into the poll or if you're having issues. And just keep in mind, it might be a typo. So try to use the cut and paste. And I know it's back there in the chat. Sometimes we need to replicate them again. So you might need to scroll back in chat to see it. Oh, you can't copy and paste from the chat?
If
Oh,
it's
well,
giving
darn.
you trouble, please just type out training plus analyst and make sure to substitute numbers for those number signs. We have at least one 007 and I saw 006, so we've got some spy movie fans.
And if two or more people happen to use the same, it's not a big issue. Just we'll customize the names when we need to. And so it won't be a big issue. Yeah, we do often have trouble with that. All right, so I'm leaving it up here, making sure. So far, I haven't seen anybody. Okay, so somebody does want me to repeat the instructions. So let's go through it. So what you're going to do is you can either, like I said, you can just open up another tab up here and type service.sumologic.com, or you can do it through an incognito window, which I'll show once again how you get to that. You just go right here, usually in the top of your browser, and it would say either incognito or private, depending on the browser. And we support, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, Edge. And then just open that up and then go ahead and put in that URL. So you would just type service, since people can't copy it, service.sumologic.com. And then put in the email, training plus analyst. And then choose a number at sumologic.com. And then use that security password. It's SE, just the word security, and then 21 with an exclamation. And then just click sign in, and you should be right in. So hopefully that helped the people that were asking if I could repeat the instructions.
So yes,
Yeah.
there's a rare possibility you might see somebody else's work, but the class we're teaching this morning was security. So you should be good for what we're doing in fundamentals.
Yeah, and if you sign in, oh, this one happened, somebody locked it. All right, let me use a different one. If you are signing in, here I go. Oh, wow. Okay, so let me go to a different number, 344.
You have an extra S
I won't.
there. Analysts.
Oh, I sure do. I sure do. Thanks for that help. There we go. I'm not going to actually use this number, but once you signed in, it will look like this. This is what your Sumo will look like. And somebody mentioned they might see some dashboards, like there might be something open up here, up here at the top. So if there are, you can leave them open if they're not in your way, or you can actually close them. Now, if more than one person is in the same account, you have a choice. You could log out and go choose some more obscure number that you didn't see in the chat. So anyways, just you have that choice, or you can just kind of maintain it as you go through and just be aware somebody else might be creating stuff in there too. Your choice. I mean, there's about 1,000 there that you can choose from. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now, but please continue to reach out. Stacy can be there for anybody to give them further guidance on logging in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go to my Sumo.
A loop. If you're a brand new account user, you may have to verify your account. I can walk you through it.
Okay. All right, so now, first thing we're going to do is just talk a little bit about the user interface of what you're looking at in here. And I'm going to make mine nice and big. All right, the first thing I like to always show is up here you can close this navigation panel on the left if you want by clicking on this little arrow, or clicking on Sumo Logic to re-expand it. So you click on the arrow, re-expand, and you can also size. Okay, a lot of our windows, when in doubt, try clicking in our UI and you might be nicely surprised. Then let's talk about these. I want to actually kind of we'll come back and talk more about navigation in the activities. Let's get you to the labs and also where the slides are and all that. So here we have the Home tab. The Home tab allows you to have some clickable links that would open up these windows, as well as you have recently opened dashboards and recently run searches. which I really like when I've been gone for a while, or even the next day when I've forgotten where I left off, and I can just come right back in here and click and get back to work. Recommended dashboards is based on, artificial intelligence heuristics that we are looking at what you're doing and making some suggestions that you might want to investigate. Pin searches is whenever you run a job in the background. So when you run a query and you want it to execute in the background, you will see them here in pin searches. All right, and then learn, if you come back up here to the top on the home tab and click learn. Learn now is where you get access to our departments, all of our training environment here at Sumo. So here you can have some clickables on some micro lessons for different topics. Here's the fundamentals training, but we're going to actually go access it in a different way, but it's back here for your quick reference. Administrator training, we also keep that there for your quick reference. Cheat sheet, docs, what's new? These 6 icons over here, these are very helpful links in the Learn tab because you can actually go to the cheat sheet here. Okay, you can actually go to the cheat sheet here if you click on this. This is really nice. You might want to leave this open because what this allows you to do is, as a new person to Sumo, or even if you've never seen it before, some of you have been with us for over a year using our tool that are in the training today. This is nice because it takes you to all the online operators and it groups them by parsing. It groups them by aggregation, and it groups them by their different types of search operators, as well as at the end, it all gets into mathematics and different kind of correlation transactionals that we have. So all of the details are here, and you can see that you'll get a little description as well as an example of how to code with it. So if you're not familiar with them, this can be very, very helpful, especially to somebody new trying to learn the operators in our language. Now, this PDF version, I kind of hover over it because I also want to show you this PDF version. And the PDF version is nice because when we get back to traveling around and get to actually do these demonstrations to you and training certifications in person, we hand out these brochures. And so this is a nice quick reference, and it's a little shorter. So it doesn't have as much information, but it groups everything, and that could be handy to you. Now, what I like to do is just put this real quick into the chat. Let me just copy that and paste. Oh, she already did it. I'll stop repeating. All right, so that's the cheat sheet. Online documentation, you just click on that and it'll allow you to ask anything from, search for anything in our documentation, so that all that is available to you there. What's new is because we are a SaaS environment, right? So this is our releases. So this is where you can find out what we've changed. So if something looks different to you or is acting different, you can come here and you can say, oh, okay, so they made a slight change here on this, and now you got your notification. Asking for support, technical support, or reaching out to us to get any private trainings or any group trainings that you might want to do. We do those all the time. And then here's the community. The 3 heads here is what you're going to click on next. The community is where you can go and access. So click here on community, and you'll access our online blogging area called Sumo Logic Community. And if you scroll down, you can take a glance at some of the different discussions that are going on different topics. We're going to go and use this for getting access to the labs. So if you would just type the word LABS, labs, into the community search, and then press enter return on your keyboard. The top link that appears over here on the right under community should be the one that you want, called Training and Certification Labs, Webinars, and Slides. So go ahead and click on that. And then you'll see fundamentals here at the top. Okay. Now, the labs are located right here. So to open up the labs, go ahead and click on the Fundamentals Labs. And you should see 7 labs appear, lab 1 through 7 under fundamentals. And I think Stacy has put this link in the chat so that we have that there, just in case somebody missed that. But if you missed that, I'll go back to the UI. All I did was I clicked on community and then typed in the keyword labs. and it takes you right to this page. So I open up the labs and they've opened in a new tab. I have them right here. Now, the next thing I want to do is I just want to show you that there is a previous webinar recording on any of our trainings. You can see all our trainings in here, and slides. You might want to access the slides or at least open them up so that they're available to you for the training or just for any kind of reference. So if you click on slides, it'll take you right to Sumo Generalist for fundamentals. This is in a slide share on LinkedIn. You can go through the slides. You can make them full page. You can download them if you have a LinkedIn account yourself. And that's where you access our slides. So hopefully everybody has access to the slides and also the labs now. Now, what I like to do is I like to grab the labs tab and slide it right next to my Sumo. And I pinned my Sumo. You don't have to. I just went here right now, selected and pinned it. It's up to you. It's just less wrist movement. So now let's start with the very first lab. All right. All right. So now the topic, this first topic, viewing the data, click on it. And now you should see that it's asking you, to see it's telling you, let's get started with signing in, which we already did. So we can skip past that part, but we're going to look at some of the data that's available to us in a couple of different ways in this lab. All right, so let's see what data is available. All right, so what we got here is the way that our labs work is whenever you see like the bolded, okay, then you might want to copy, that's telling you an action that you're gonna take or something you might want to copy and paste in. So you'll also see some of it in, if you scroll down in step 4, where it's showing you, code. So just kind of wanted to let you know that that's why these are here. So it's easy, hopefully, for you to copy and paste right here from our site. All right, so the first thing is, let's go see what data is available, right? What data is in our system? And you can take these same commands and use them back in your own Sumo instance. All right, so we're going to do manage data, then click collection, and then we should be on the collection tab. So I go back to my Sumo UI. I'll be toggling between these two a lot. And I want to go to manage data. So on the left-hand side, you see where I'm at? Manage data right here at the bottom left. Manage data, click on that. It'll expand, and then you want to click on collection. Now, this is your main viewing page. It should be on the collection tab, but if you happen to come up under something else, just click on collection so you can sync up with us. Now, this is showing you all the collectors in the system. It's showing you up to 10. You can customize it with these drop-down filters here on how much you want to see on a page at a time. But it's showing you all the collectors. Collectors are these ones with the little expanders. So you can either hide or you can collapse them if you want by clicking on them. Now, just to kind of get us all looking at the same thing, I like to search for Okta, and then I'll walk you through the different, showing you the collector and the sources. So Okta, OKTA, up in the search window. If you would type that in. I'm deviating a little bit from the lab just because I like Okta. It's a good example. I think it helps learn the sources and collectors. So once again, when you type in Okta and then just press enter return, it'll bring up any of the collectors. This is the way you could search specifically for something that you're interested in. So Okta here has 2 different collectors. They both have these little triangle expanders by them that you can turn on and off by clicking on them. When they're expanded, then you see the sources that are underneath the collectors. So these are the collectors and these are the sources. This is the collector and these are the sources going down. So let's start with going across the column of the collector first, just so that you can see the different information that's in here that you can view. First, you get the healthy indicator, or if it's not healthy, right? And I'll show you those here in a minute. And then you have the type. We talked about installed collectors and hosted collectors. So these are both hosted collectors, that the type of collector that, and once again, what does that mean? Most of your modern apps that are coming in that aren't on-prem would be a hosted collector. And we call it hosted because we actually host the collector in the cloud. You don't have to download any lightweight Java agent to set up hosted collectors. Then if I keep going across on either one of these, I can see their sources. I get to their sources. This one says 1, which I can obviously see one source hanging off of it. And this one says 5, which I can count these to confirm, yep, 5. Then it gives me the last hour data, and it also a visual, and it also gives me the total count of the messages that came in for that last hour. Now, all this over here is not enough time in fundamentals to go through, but come back to an admin if you'd like to understand how to add a source, how to install a collector, and that sort of thing. We'll go over all that. Now, moving down, let's look at one of the sources that is on this. So I'll just go down here and use CloudTrail under this LabSec demo. And the CloudTrail, when I scroll across, it's telling me it's healthy. It's also telling me that I have a source category. So you might be going, what's a source category? I used it in the demo. This is a pointer to the data, okay? So this was what helped us get that unified metrics and logs where I had that heat map. And it's a pointer to your data and it's customizable. So let me talk about that. If I go back to the slides, I can go back here to the slides and cover this slide down here below. I must have passed it. There it is. If you're looking at the slide deck, it's around slide number 12. It might be slightly different. But let me enlarge this. So when you're pointing to data, so any of these data sources, they need to use the sending data metadata that's pre-built in Sumo. If you think about it, just stop for a moment and think about, you need to connect your data with our tool, right? So we need to have something built in that you can reference that's common, right? That's knowledgeable. So we have these 5 metadatas. Underscore collector would be the name of the collector. Underscore source host is the host name. And underscore source name is that name and path down to each of the log files if you want to have that kind of source. And the underscore source is just the name of the data so that you can give it. Now, these 4, notice, are not bolded. The reason why this one's bolded is because it is freely configurable by our customers. So we made this one in addition to these others because this allows you to more represent your topology, your infrastructure of your system. So how your users want to reference that specific data. There's a lot of other best practices that we cover in admin training that go into partitions and RBAC controls and things like that. But basically, you want to be able to point to only the data that you need, and you want it to be something that's memorable. So we give you this freely configured one so that you can set it up to point to your data that makes sense for you and the rest of your company. So in this case, here's an example, Labs Apache Access, right? So this customer, in this example, they set it up by maybe separating labs with their production environment, with maybe their QA environment or user acceptance testing, whatever you might want to call it. Maybe their prod environment has a whole nother level, right? So that way you could represent different data that's occurring in your system, whether it's in production or development or whatever it might be. Some of our customers do it in other ways, maybe by Amazon regions, geographically. It just depends on what makes sense for your company. So anyways, let me now go back to the lab. So in this lab, where we're at is I was showing the source category. We were going across CloudTrail, and when I got to this one, I wanted to make sure that you understood that source category is one of those 5 built-in metadatas. And you'll see as we go through the lab activities, that's how you're going to point to data. All right, and the last thing to mention in here is, let me get out of the search for Okta and clear that. So I have to actually delete Okta and press return when it's blank so that I reset it. So now it's back how when we entered. I just wanted to show you that you have one other feature in the dropdown. Here we were looking at all collectors and then searching for Okta, but we saw that it was a hosted collector. But what if you want to go look at your installed collectors, or you want to filter on your stopped collectors? So you can do all that by just using these filters. So just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. All right, so that's it on that part of the lab. Let me know if you guys have questions. Click plus new. Now, in this next part, we're going to look at data by using a query. So we're going to click plus new at the top, and we're going to open a log search. So let's do that. Back in the UI, we go plus new and log search. So just plus new and log search. Now, notice there's a whole bunch of other things in here too. Feel free to click around while I'm talking if you want to, depending on if you want to keep up with me or not. But this is how you open a metrics query, traces, service map. This is a lot of our observability capability in the system. Kubernetes and observability for Explore. You just click on any of these. I'll do one of them like Explore, and you can see some of the other tools that we have in here. That's one of the nice things about maybe coming back and exploring in our training environment is that we have everything available to you. So you have full access to all the features of our system. And the new dashboards is our dashboards, and the root cause is also for getting down to that root cause analysis that we have as a feature of our tool. So you can open up any of these by using the plus new. So I'm going to go back to the log search one and back to the lab by clicking back on the lab tab. Now, what it wants us to do now that we have that open is it wants us to basically put into the search this command down here. And I've highlighted mine. That's all I do. And then right mouse, however you like to copy and paste, I just right mouse click, copy, and then I go back to my Sumo and I paste it in. There we go. So now I've just copied and pasted from the lab. This is your query builder up here at the top. That's where you're going to insert your code. So what is this code doing in here? Probably the easiest way is to go ahead and click start to run it. You can run it two ways. You can mouse over to the start and click that, or you can just be right here, clicked in the query builder. So you have to click in the query builder and then press enter return. And that will also run the query. So you have two ways, depending on if you're more of a keyboard or you don't mind hovering, mousing over to the start. All right, now by default, we always do last 15 minutes. So we're looking at 15 minutes worth of data. We're getting a histogram. And this is a histogram actually of all this incoming data represented by this wildcard. Now, what a wildcard does is it looks with this asterisk is it basically says, bring me everything. So we're doing what I would call central log management right now. Not always recommended, right? Because you're ingesting all the data across your system, right? And the reason why we have these source categories is so that you can point to specific data and ingest only what you need. But in this example, we just want to do something where we want to count all of our incoming source categories. So we're going to take all that incoming data. This is called a pipe here, this little vertical bar, that's a pipe. We're going to pipe them to this next command, which is count. And then you always need to say, what do you want to count by? Fingers, toes, eyeballs, heads. All right, maybe I'm getting a little obscure. So count by, and we're going to count by that metadata that's built in underscore source category. So whenever you run an aggregate command, notice it now created the aggregate tab down here. All right, so you still have your underlying messages. You can toggle between these two. So you click on messages and still go and see all your incoming messages, which in this case, I'm looking at quite a bit of data. You can see up here underneath the histogram that in 1 second, we got over 709,000 logs that came in, straddling over 28,000 pages, right? So it's a lot of data. So we're looking at everything coming in, and here's all the logs, and you can actually see those on the message tab. But going back to the aggregate tab, that gets created whenever you run whenever you use an aggregate operator. And we told it to count by the source category, so you can see source categories in the first column, and then count is in the second column. So here you have that tabulation of everything that's in the system. So that's another way using a query that you might want to reference information from your data, right? Here we're just tallying up. All right, so moving on, unless somebody has a question, stop. You know how to slow down the instructor as you ask questions. So feel free. to unmute your mic and ask any question if you'd like, or put it in the chat. So find and display a shared dashboard. So now that we know how to look at our data, the next thing is to move this to the pipeline in step 2, right? Queries, right? So the first thing we want to do is, before we have to just jump in and design a query, we have out-of-the-box tools. And somebody might have already installed them at your company, and they might already be there in the library. Just like you would go to the library, your public library, we have a library in Sumo. So your company can actually set up whatever they'd like in their library. So here we're going to go look for Apache Access, right here, Apache Access in the search field. So what we're going to do is click on this library here and then type Apache Access in the little magnifying search window. So let's go do that. So I click on library, and I'll come back in a moment and talk about the rest of these. But here's library, and then I'm going to type Apache Access. And usually you don't have to type the whole thing, you know, as long as you have enough in there for it to identify it. So we have this Apache Access. So if you would click on this Apache Access here at the top, the one created by John Meredith. So go ahead and click on Apache Access right here. You'll see that it has 2 folders, logs and metrics, and it also has this Apache overview. You know, feel free to look at whatever interests you in here. You can see a lot of different things if you expand them, but I do want you to open the Apache overview or something in here. I'll just open up the overview, Apache overview for now. So this is one of our out-of-the-box apps that somebody has installed in the system, and they put it in the library. So how you can quickly go find anything in the library and access it that you might need. Now, the library is a common area that's shared, but you also have this right to the left, you have this personal folder. That is your working directory. So whenever you create something and save it, it will save in your personal folder. Then you also have favorites. So any of these, like if let's say I come back to this overview dashboard a lot from the library, I can come down here and I can make it a quick favorite. And if I do that, then when I go over here in my favorites, it will show that Apache overview as a favorite. And you can toggle it away if you don't like it anymore. And then you have recent, most recent. So recent is nice because you can toggle up at the top between either recently opened by you, which is, you know, makes a lot of sense. But because Sumo is a collaborative environment, we also have recently shared with me. So this is great. I always like showing this because this is great because what if, you know, somebody says, well, I shared that with you last week. And you're like, well, I don't know where it is. Maybe you didn't get the email or you missed it in your inbox. You can come right to the recents and go to recently share with me and see who shared what in the last time frame. All right. So that takes us through this lab as far as that part of looking at something that's in the library. Now, what if it wasn't in the library and you need it? So this is where we're going to go and look to see, before once again you would start building a query or making your own dashboard, right? Go and look at our out of the box in the app catalog, okay? So we're going to walk you through that. So it's really easy to install. This Apache app is what we're going to install through the app catalog. So we're going to click back here in the UI. Do you see over here kind of in the middle left of the page, app catalog? Click on that. And a new tab should open up called app catalog. Do you guys see that? App catalog. Now, if you're getting too much up here, at any time you can X any of these other things, as if you are not sharing one with somebody else, because you would actually remove it for them. But you can also use these 3 vertical dots and close other tabs. This is one of my favorites to show. That would just leave this one open that I wanted. I can bring back any of those other ones by going back and doing the activities if I want. All right, so now that I'm here, now the next thing I want to do is I want to take just a quick look at these. There's about 200 apps, it's roughly in that neighborhood. There's categories listed here. So like, let's say you're a DevOps person. You might want to come to the DevOps. Let's say you're interested in our security. What all do we have? Go to the compliance and security. Maybe you care about baselining tools with our global intelligence. You could go and look at what's available there. if you go back to all categories after you've kind of looked at something that might have interested you, for this lab, we want to search for Apache. So we'll type Apache and look for the feather one. Once you see the feather, then you can just click on this icon. We're going to go through how to install this so that you can see how to quickly get any app out of our app catalog up and running. So when I click on that feather, it then brings me here. Now I can click to go back to the app catalog, just seeing that up here. I can preview dashboards. You know, I could preview dashboards is one of my favorites, actually. If you click on that real quick, it's nice because it gives you that visual of what the dashboards look like. And sometimes that's all you need to discern whether or not you want to install it, right? But there's more. Community, you can go out to the, where we got the labs and the slides, right? You can go out to the community pages to get more. You can get training help with the learn more. Then down here, you can actually click on these also to expand them, and you can see that there's a little blurb on each one of these. And if you click on one, it'll give you more details. So just click on things, you know, this is a training environment. Feel free to play. If you get messed up,
Jackie,
myself
would you
or
mind
Stacy will help you.
clicking on setup collection just so that they can see that the docs are included? So right next to overview, there's that setup collection. And now we pull the docs straight into the product. So if you're struggling to set up your collector before you want to install this app, it's right there for you.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, that's a new one. I like it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You bet. All right, so now if I go back to the lab, after we've clicked on our little feather there, now we want to add it to the library. So we're going to click on this add to library, and then we're going to customize it. Here is where it's important to use initials, maybe even a couple of numbers, just so that yours, especially if you suspect you're sharing an account with somebody else, you'll want something that's memorable so that maybe note it down because we're going to use it in Lab 5. Okay, so you'll need to use this app that we're installing right now again. So this is probably the only place for that continuity is important. I just want to highlight that. So just make sure that we click add to library. We're going to get this little pop-up, and then we customize it with an app name that we'll be able to come back and use later on. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's follow these instructions. So the first thing is back here in Sumo, I click on my add to library right here. The pop-up appears. I want to give it a custom name, so I'm going to use my initials, and then I don't know, I'll just use today's date, 08. That's probably enough for me. Then it's always going to ask you, each app is different. This app only needs one piece of information that's put into it, and that's back here in the lab where you see you want to click on it to enter a custom data filter. So rather than use a source category, we're going to enter a filter pointing to web server _ system Apache. Now, if you don't want to type all that, you can just go here to step 4 where I'm at and highlight it and copy it and then paste it in. That might be the easiest way. So once you've copied that, let's go back to the UI, and then we're going to click here and toggle it. Instead of using the built-in metadata, we're going to use a custom data filter. And then we're going to go ahead and just paste. I just pasted that web server _ system equals Apache. Now, advanced, just to talk about that, is where it gives you access to, by default, always your personal folder. That's where we're going to assume, unless you change it, that you want to save this particular app to. But you can, if your IT person has set you up with other resources, you can save it to any folders that you have RBAC access to. And you can also create structure under your personal folder by clicking on personal folder, and then you see where it says plus new folder. You can create additional folders in here. I'm not going to do that right now, but just wanted to give you that idea. I'm just going to let it save to my personal. So then at the bottom, you're going to click on add to library right here, add to library. And now you should see after a couple seconds that it will pop up with a green telling you that it is completed successfully, if everything went fine. And I probably want to make sure in speaking that this is where your data is now hooking up to this particular Apache app using this custom data filter. You could also do it with source categories if you wanted to. My Wi-Fi is very slow today. Hopefully you guys are already done with this.
Did your
Yeah,
custom
go
data
ahead.
filter get cleared? Oh no. You popped
I
in.
hope not. I hope not. What says it installed successfully? So now how do we know? How can we check on that? Do you see that it toggled you from the home tab to the folder up here at the top? And now you should have all of that under your personal folder. So now how do I find out if I had any issues? I can go and activate my particular Apache. I can use any of these, but I think in the lab, it just wants you to look at the one that's here at the Apache level. So I'm just going to open up the overview. And I have my data. Looks like it's coming in. So now I successfully have installed this Apache app, and it's stored in my personal folder up here. So this is a case where if it's not in the library, you can install any of our out-of-the-box apps that are all located here on the app catalog. You can install any of these at all that you're interested in. If I go back to the top.
So we have two questions in chat. One of them is just around the syntax for it. I believe it's web server _ system equals Apache should be the right custom data filter.
Yeah, I can put that into the chat. Let me go ahead and paste that.
We have at least one person getting an error about invalid syntax, but it should be basically the type and then equals whatever you want to look for. Very cool. So that's got a set. And then the other question was around just having clean data sources so that you don't have to kind of filter through so many source categories or force through so many data filters.
Oh, absolutely. Another way that when we install, if I go to, let me just go to this ARIA packet. If I go to click add to library, source category, and that would point directly to the data source. So you can certainly use that. We just wanted to show the other option in this lab.
So Paul, usually source categories have a unique name, and that would help you be able to kind of find yours in the haystack of everyone else's data sources. You'd know your source category and you'd be able to get it. But we also recommend that customers keep a list of their source categories and use that as onboarding to Sumo so that it's clear to people what is which. Also that you name your source categories, very simple, practical things that make sense to everyone. If you try and abbreviate too many things, you obviously end up with people not knowing what the source category is about. And I'll put the best practices link in. Sorry for the diversion, Jackie.
Okay. All right, so now that we've installed this in our personal folder, more than likely we're not working in isolation, right? So you probably want to shave it. You probably want to share it with other people in your company. So here, after we've installed it, we can actually use, go back to our Apache and we can share either at the folder level or any subcomponent, you know, if we just want to share a query or a dashboard by using these details icons and then clicking on share. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I go back here and I might still have it in my folder. Now, let's say you clicked on your folder and it was no longer there, like you're back up at this level or something. So I'm just kind of showing how would you find it again, right? So if you go up here to your personal folder, all right, and then remember what was significant and unique about yours. I use JS08. So if I go with that, there it is. So that's you go to your personal folder and search for it by that unique name that you gave it. Now, I could share at this level, which is what the lab wants us to do, or I could share, if I just wanted to share this file, maybe I just want people to check it out before, you know, I share too much information. But let's say I just want to share this. I click on the details icons, these 3 vertical dots right here. And do you see the share? There's a whole bunch of other commands which we teach in other trainings, but the share right here is allowing you then to collaborate with others. So I can share this. And if I click on share, then it'll ask me, Do you want to share with a specific user? So I want to share with my boss, Josh, you know, because I want to help him out. And then I want to share with maybe other analysts, if I type it right. So you can use roles. Analyst, there we go. As I type a little bit, we do try to give you these lookups so that, you know, you see I haven't finished it. I can now just click here. So we do a lot of that look ahead that might be make it easier for you to use our UI. So now that I've chosen a user and some role, one of the roles to share it with, now I have to define, do I want them to have view, edit, manage, what level, you know, and maybe I want him to be able to edit, right? Because we're working together. And then how much do I want him to be able to do with other users? You know, do I want him to be able to grant access or not? Maybe I don't. So I say, cannot grant. Of course, it's my boss. So in my scenario, I probably want to say, yeah, you can grant access. You can do it all. Then it will automatically, unless you turn it off, notify recipients by email. So I can add a note to the email here, like maybe reminding them what this was for, right? Because we're also busy. So I can say, this is for project XYZ. I can't type today. Project XYZ. Now, this is also another one I like. This little one here, you can see who else has access because this is brand new. But let's say this was one that was pre-existing and I inherited it, you know, with my new job responsibilities or something. I can come in here and see the history of who all has access. So if somebody's saying, oh, I can no longer see something, I can come in here and fix it for them. And then share. At the end, when you're done on the bottom right, just say share. And go ahead and share. It spams a few people, but we're all good. It's now telling us that we shared this. And now Josh and those other analysts will get that email and they'll be able to access it through, maybe they'll go to recently shared to them or just click on the link that's in the email. So that's sharing. Really easy to collaborate at Sumo inside our UI. So there's no more questions on lab 1. Off to lab 2. You can click at the bottom like I just did, or you can scroll back up and click on the left navigation panel to lab 2 called Search for Log Data. All right, so I know you guys are really interested in queries and getting more understanding. So that's what we're going to start doing in this lab and the next lab. So first thing is we're going to go back to the plus new and we're going to open a log search. And then we're going to enter this into the query. So I'm going to go ahead and copy step 2. So I'm ready to paste it in once I go back to the UI. All right, so I copied step 2. Now I'm back in the UI and I'm going to go plus new log search and paste it in. Now I can just come over, remember how to run it. I can just come over and click the start, right, to run it. So I can do that, or what else can I do? If I'm clicked in the query builder, I can press enter or return to run it. And then after you've ran it, then you will see the histogram below it, and you will see the incoming logs. The total number, remember, is right here in the middle of the bottom of the histogram. So you can see the results there. That's how many logs have come in from this time period. We'll play around with time here in a second. So we'll just kind of keep looking at what's going on here. So here we use the built-in metadata underscore source category, pointing specifically to our labs Apache access data. And then what is this part? That is our filter. We want to teach you in best practices that in addition to pointing to that data, just like when I did in the demo, I use error and exception. You can only bring in just those particular logs that have this keyword. And so we use the end, and then the filter is get. So do you see that it's highlighted all the incoming logs where the get occurred? Now we can play for just a moment, which I like to do. Use something else. You know, first, maybe try get in lowercase. What does that do? It's not case sensitive. It will still, you know, bring in the same get. And we do that on purpose. Obviously, we don't want you to have to memorize what the case sensitivity of whatever you're looking for in the incoming logs. The other thing is to play around with this a little further is maybe try another word. I kind of like to do things like if I look in there, I can see something that's going on with Android. Now, when I filter on something else, it will keep changing the results, right? It could go up or down depending. And time is marching on, remember that. So we're gonna all see slightly different results depending on when we ran the query. So like if I run this right now, mine has 8:43, for example. If I run it again real quick, it possibly will change. Now it's 8:24 because time is marching on. So that sometimes confuses people, but just, time is always moving, right? Can't stop that. Try other things. Maybe look for something in the messages that might interest you. I can see that I also have something about Safari in mind. So I'll just look on Safari. And remember, it's not case sensitive. So once again, the Safari that I'm finding has an uppercase S, and I didn't put that here. So it's not case sensitive. Now I've tried a few different things. So I want to get back to my get, right? To get back to the beginning lab. So we have history right here. If you click on the little drop down, do you see where I'm at? I'm just kind of toggling it. And this is built-in history. You can customize it to how many you want to retain. I think we do 20 in our training environment. And I can go back to that get that I originally had put in. So I think it was this one, just by clicking on it, and it'll bring that back. And then I can run it again, and I'm back to where I started. So you have nice history here in case you weren't aware of that. So that is pointing to data using the built-in metadata called source category, pointing specifically to the labs Apache, and then using a keyword as a filter. Now, the Boolean operation here, and let's talk about Boolean just for a second. Ands don't have to actually be in the code. I could actually delete this and it would run the same. So just the ors and the nots. So as we go on and you'll see some ors and nots, I believe, you'll see that those are explicit. They must be in, but the end, if you're putting it in there, it's more for good coding, to be explicit, right, on what you're doing. All right. All right, so let's go down now and change the time. So far, we just left it at 15 minutes, but you can control that. So if I go back here to the query, let's go play around with time. There's a lot of different things you can do. All right, so do you see where I'm at over here by the start? Last 15 minutes is a default. So if you don't choose something, that's what it'll default to. So if I click on it, then I get this pop down that shows me relative and custom. And the relatives go up to about 30 days worth of data using quantities that are pretty commonly of interest by, when we survey our customers. So I can go and I can change this. I can run for the last 3 hours. I can just select whatever I want out of that. I can run it for the last 60 minutes. I could run it using a custom one, which has a nice calendar. And the calendar, I can actually do a range of times. So I can click on a time here and say, I want to do that from Friday to Saturday and see what that data looks like, and then specify the time here, and then click apply, and it'll put that custom time in there for you. Recents will not pop up initially until you've clicked a few and ran them, and so it'll track what you've been running. So here I ran the 3 hours and the 60 minutes, and now they're available to me because it's thinking maybe I might want to run them again, right? So now they're available to me, and I could choose one of them if I wanted to.
Jackie, we have a
now, what if you
on the timestamp of the logs? I don't know if you had a chance to see it in chat, but basically, are the logs times displayed based on when they entered Sumo Logic, or are they based on UTC? How do we make that decision with the timestamps?
I'll get to that actually now, I guess, and I'll come back to what I was going to say.
Great segue.
All right, so this is the timestamp. So just for people that are looking at the incoming logs, so somebody was asking, here's the timestamp in these particular incoming logs. It can look differently depending on what kind of logs you're looking at, but there's the timestamp, and that is shown here because we're in a mode called message time. Excuse me, which means we're going to use the timestamp from the incoming message in this time column. So that's what you're seeing there now. then what we can do is we can actually run it again. And by the way, that's dictated by the time zone that you set up. So if you go here, well, actually, let me finish this up. So if we go to message time and we click on receipt time, so you can toggle it to receipt time and then just run it again in receipt time mode. And you'll see an additional time column that will appear. And that is the time that Sumo received it. So it'll be slightly different. Like you can see, it's just a few milliseconds of difference. So that's part of your question. The other thing kind of had to do with time zones. So where you activate your time zones is if you click down here, you guys are logged into different training analyst accounts. So do you see I'm in the bottom left corner? Click on that. And then you'll see under preferences, click on that. And here is where you can customize to whatever time zone you want. So you can customize to how you want that to show. And you can change it to UTC. So hopefully I addressed your question. Let me know if I didn't. Now going back to the lab, what I was also going to show is in time is you can also manually just, you know, you don't have to be stuck with what we've offered you. You can just click into the time and type whatever time you want. Like, let's say I want something kind of unique, like minus 47 minutes for some reason. And you'll get comfortable after a while. M means minutes, D means days, those sort of things. H is hours. So I could run whatever time that I want in here, customize by just manually typing it. You can even put in a time range, like maybe I want to go back 2 days to 3 days and just look at that incoming data and run that. So you can customize it for whatever you want. Now, if some of them take too long and they're running and you want to abort it, one way to do that is cancel, and you can also pause them. Right underneath the start, do you see cancel and pause? Just pointing those out. So like here, you know, I don't really care to run for the last couple of days, so I could just pause it or cancel it, you know, to abort this if I wanted to. So I can just click on cancel and then it stops running it. All right. So I'm going to just go back to something simple like maybe the last 15 minutes and run it again, get back to where we were. So that's time. Let me know if there's some aspect we didn't cover. Now, I already talked about the results. So hopefully you've seen that, but this, you know, reference this material if you wanted to see that a little bit more, but I talked about all that under there. So I'm going to move on to parsing. So now we got these great incoming logs coming in, right? And we know how to begin a query and how to filter a little bit on incoming log messages coming from that data source using the keyword like nget. But what else, you know, might we want to do? Well, we probably want to have our tool pull out by parsing specific values that appear, different metadata that appears over here. So we want to parse out the selected text in here. So we're going to do this first parse with a parse anchor. There's many ways you can parse if you go back and look at the cheat sheet that we opened up earlier, but we're going to use this parse anchor. And you don't even have to know programming language. It's just click and point, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight specific text in here, and I'll walk you through it. We're going to start with the get and go all the way to, I think it's like the 5th double quote. And then we're going to right mouse click and get parse the selected text. So let's go do that. We don't have to use a specific incoming log message. We can actually use any of them. So I'm just going to go to this one down here to show my example. I'm going to start highlighting. So I'm just clicking. And if you mess up, you can just click anywhere and click again to start over. And I'm going to highlight that get. I'm going to keep coming. I'm going to go past the 2nd double quote, past the 3rd double quote, and I get all the way to this 4th double quote. That's actually pulling in 4 fields after the get, if you can see those. A field are separated by these spaces. So I have this field, this field, this field, and this field. Once I've highlighted them, and trust me, if you've made a mistake, it's not going to be problematic. You just won't get exactly what I'm getting, but we'll fix it by the next lab. You'll be able to just start over. Then I would right mouse click and I'll click on parse selected text. Notice that it grabbed everything I had highlighted into this pop-up. So I have everything from the get all the way to the end. The reason is that now I can pick out exactly what I want to pull from that. So I want everything. I'm greedy this morning. I want everything. So I'm going to highlight, once again, using the highlighting, just point and click. And then you do need to click to say, I want to extract this value. Now, remember, you're not getting that specific value, you're getting the field. It'll make more sense as we do it. All right, so now I've replaced it with an asterisk. Do you see the asterisk? Once I clicked on the selected text. Now I got to get a bit of custom metadata name. So what do you want to call it? You can call it whatever you want, but I'll just go kind of with what I know they are. This is a URL. So if you're sharing with somebody else, this might be another place to put JS08, just so that yours looks different than theirs. So you can survive. Then highlight the next one that you want. So I go to the next space and then grab the next field. So remember, I'm not grabbing the 404 exactly, I'm grabbing the field. So click to extract that. Now that 404, if you're not familiar, that's a status code for HTML. So I'll just call it a status code.
So
And if you think you're sharing,
people have an outage for a short minute. And so what we're trying to do here is work on how to parse out specific fields from what's available in the messages, correct? And that's just a highlight and a right click to get you there within that message text.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, and I see somebody saying they want me to start over. I mean, I can, but we will get a little bit behind. You know, I'm pretty quick at this, so I can cancel and I can do it again. So once you have, you should have this, hopefully with your time, if you're experiencing little power outages or internet outages, of course, then come here and just grab in any of these messages, grab from the first double quote all the way to the fifth one. So you can kind of count them 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4. Sorry, I missed the first one, but there's 5 of them. All right, so now I'm going to parse that selected text with the right mouse click. And now I just highlight the ones that I'm interested in and click to extract this value. And I'm going to call this first one URL. And if you are sharing with somebody else, you might want to put your initials and like 08. It's up to you. You'll just be creating the same thing, both of you. And then the 200, extract that field. That's the HTML status codes. So I can just call it whatever. I'm going to just call it status codes. And then the next field is the byte size of that incoming message. I highlight that from space to space, right? The 4-digit field. Click to extract. It replaces it with a wildcard again, and I give it a name. And I'm going to call this just bytes. Or you call it size or whatever you want to call it. And then this last one is a refer. So I will go ahead and click to extract from between the 2 double quotes, click to extract the value, and I'll call it a refer. So notice that I put a comma between all of these. So I have 3 commas in there separated as a separator for my metadata. My custom metadata names that I'm assigning. And I have no extra spaces. That's why when I did the status codes, I used a underline to connect them, but still make it readable. All right, so once I had that, and once again, if you messed up, we'll fix it in the next lab for the going on with the query, so no worries. Submit. And now it has pasted that up here. You can see it. Here's that parse anchor. And this is the verbiage for the anchor, showing where the explicit wildcards are represented with each of these asterisks. So you can see there's those 4 asterisks. Each one of these are then represented here and named. So this would be for the first asterisk, this would be for the second asterisk, the third, and the fourth. And if I go ahead and run this for whatever time you want to use, I'll just leave the default. Once again, I have my histogram, which you can hide if it's in the way. If you want to see more of your logs, you can toggle the histogram on and off by using that link there. So you can hide it. And now I can actually see, what's coming in. I can see my bytes did get I got that. I got the count for this incoming log. I got the count for the next one and the count for the next one. So these are the byte sizes. I got each of the refers pulled out. I got each of their status codes and each of their URLs. All right. So that is really a nice way to parse by not having to be a coder, right? Is using the parse anchors. And if you're interested in the other ways to parse, we do go more into that in a search mastery training, which we'll be teaching those later in this month, if you're interested. So now that we've done a little bit, we're going to move on with this query in the next lab. So don't worry, but let's talk about saving. Sometimes when I open up, a document or something like that I'm editing, the first thing I do is do a save, if it's something that doesn't automatically save, right? So you want to make sure that you're saving anything important as you go. So it's important to know this. It's just like when you're taught to I don't know, what's universal? When you're taught to, what am I going to think of? Roller skate. If you're roller skating or ice skating, depending on where you live, the first thing people want to teach you is how to stop, right? And so that you know how to stop on the skates. So that's the same thing here, how to save it. So we're going to click on that save as, which is right below the query builder, and then this pop-up will appear and we're going to walk through it. So if you go back to the UI, do you see right here the query builder at the top and then the save as right below it? Click on that. And then you'll see that it's going to ask you, what do you want to call it? Here you can give it a custom name. Maybe I want to call this parsing out my Apache values. And maybe I want to say what project it's for or why I'm doing it. Project XYZ, whatever it might be. Then notice we put the query in itself. So if it were longer, there'd be more lines here. So you can actually edit this if you wanted to before you saved it. Probably not recommended though. You probably want to make sure that it worked before you were saving it. You can change the time. You can toggle the receipt time or message time. I just want message time, or if I don't really need that. And then we won't actually get into auto parse mode. That's taught in Search Mastery, but that allows our field extraction rules. You can actually, just a highlight, you can actually use our parsing that parses as the data is ingested. That's not the coolest thing. I don't know what is. So it saves you time in your queries. And we teach that in Search Mastery. All right, so location to save to. We're just going to let it default to our personal folder again and go ahead and click save. And now you should see it. If you go to your personal folder, I'm going to clear this out and I go to my personal folder and I go and I look for that one. I should be able to see that. I called it Apache something or other. Oh, here's where I might want to say most recent. So I'll go back to that. Oh, but I didn't open it. I created it. Okay, never mind that. I forgot what I named it. Oh, parsing. There we go. Let me add parsing in here. And I'll just put the keyword out. There we go. So there's my lookup for my query. So, and it's right there in my personal folder because I saved it by default to my personal folder. All right, so now we know how to save. Now let's go on with that query. So like I said, go on to lab 3 by either scrolling down to the bottom or using the left navigational panel over here. So now we're going to chart our data. And I'm doing a little quick time check. I do want to throw in a 5-minute break. This is probably a good place to put a 5-minute break, and that would allow a few of you to kind of sync up too. So let's do that, and then let's come back to charting your data. So a little 5-minute break. I have this nice little roll here. I will turn off the sound because I don't want you to have to listen to it. So I'll not share the sound. But this is a little information too about technical support with our Slack channel, Sumo Dojo. If you're interested, you can read it. And I will go ahead and give you guys a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. And we'll continue to look at questions if you have any questions in the chat, but we'll give you a little break. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so I know that hopefully everybody's caught up. If you were a little bit behind, please keep the questions coming because we certainly want to make this a wonderful experience for you. We know there's complications at times, but I hate it when I go to a training and I get behind. So I feel for you, but just keep reaching out to us if there's something that we can still help you with catching up. And continue to feel free to open up your mic and ask a question. We'd love that interactivity. That interaction with you would be very good for others as well. So where that leaves us is on charting your data. So in lab 3, so if we're going to go ahead and click on lab 3. And with this, what we're going to do is we're going to do our first aggregate of results. So we're going to take what we had. You'll see that this looks very similar to what we were using just a minute ago. We're going to take that, but we're going to add this count to it. So this is our starting to do some more work with our operators at Sumo so that you can actually see this. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So with that, the count right here, we're going to add that code and you can just grab all of this and we're going to go back and we're going to put this into a brand new query. So that, like I said, we're going to start all fresh. So in case that you didn't get that parse anchor working exactly right, it doesn't matter. You start here, ground 1, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. So I have all that from lab 3, step 2. I have underscore source category, pointing again to my labs Apache exit. We're filtering on a get, so all the incoming messages coming in. Then we're parsing out these values. And I noticed, I did talk about this, I just want to highlight it because somebody was asking about the order. The order does matter as far as this asterisk relates to this metadata. This asterisk relates to this custom metadata separated by the commas. So I just wanted to make sure that's how you assign them respectively, basically. All right, and then with this count, when we run this, go ahead and run yours, you're gonna see the aggregate tab appear. So remember, you can always toggle back to your incoming messages by clicking on the message tab, and you can see your incoming messages here, okay? All your incoming logs. But now you have this aggregate tab because you ran the count command. And the count, you always have to tell us, what do you want to count? So we want to count all those status codes because why? We just extracted them, right? It's one of the 4 things that we parsed out. So now we can actually use those as to manipulate in the code flow, like here counting by all the status codes. So you can see that we have that status code listed here. So in HTML, if you don't have to be familiar, I'll talk about this now. 200s are successful. So that's when you go to a website and you successfully get to the website. And like a 404 would be like a page not found when you go to the website and you can't find it. You'll see sometimes a 404 error. And then here is the associated count for each of those status codes. So you're getting now this aggregated data showing you how that data is associated or grouped. And in this case, we counted them. So we looked at all our incoming logs that came in from our labs Apache Access in whatever time, like the last 15 minutes, and we aggregated them by their count. So now you can see them all separated out. So that's rather nice. It also listed them here under the count. Now notice it has an underscore in front of it, just to point out that just like there's an underscore in front of the source category, this is because it's Sumo built in, you know, it's Sumo generated, built-in data. And when you do some of our operations like count, you then create, I would call this Sumo generated metadata, and you'll see underscores in front of them, and that will indicate that that's Sumo created, okay? So Sumo created it. Either it's built in, like the source category, or it is customized from an operator that you're using, like count. All right, so just so that you understand the underscore. Sometimes that's confusing to people. Now that we've looked at the aggregate tab and we've kind of looked at our data, the next thing is we've been looking at data just in those 15-minute buckets or 1-hour buckets. But what if you wanted to look at data over time? you can group that data. That's the first thing you'll need to do is instead of looking at like a 15-minute chunk all together, you can take each minute and separate them out. So the incoming logs that came in 1 minute ago would be in one group. The ones that came in 2 minutes ago would be another group. The ones that came in 3 minutes ago would be in another group until we get up to 15. So we're going to add this time slice, and we would put that right in here. And when we add that, it does change our aggregate because now we want to aggregate by those time slices and also the status codes. So if you would, you can either grab this whole thing and put it into a brand new query, or just grab these last 2 lines is how I'm going to teach it. And I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to show you how to insert code. So I want to insert that code over this one. So I can just highlight that and then go paste. So I just highlight that last line because I'm going to replace that count with the one that has the time slice in it. So now I added these 2 lines in. And what does a time slice do? Well, go ahead and run it. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what it's doing. Time slice now, do you see that all the incoming logs are grouped into 1-minute buckets? So here we have at 24 after, it's telling us that we had this many 302s, 15 302 status codes. And at, what is this, 18 after the hour, we had 10 403s. You can see the associated count for those status codes. So we're getting the time slice here represented, the status code for that time slice. So any incoming logs that had a 302 in it would be counted for that particular unit of time. Now this is nice, and we're starting to look at aggregating our data over time so that we can analyze data over time. But the problem with it is, as if you can see here, is that I'm seeing all these status codes like repeated for different times. So like, let's look here. Here I have one at 15 right here. And then it repeats again 15 for a different status code, right? This one's a 403 and this one's a 304. Or excuse me, a 200 and a 304. So we want those grouped together probably on the same line. So we have this transpose operator that is similar. If you've used Excel a little bit, you're probably familiar with using this. The transpose operator, what it does is it dictates what do you want to view on the rows and what do you want to be viewed in the columns, okay? So what you want to be viewed in the rows will show going down in the rows. And now we're going to have all of our status codes being grouped going across in the columns by using the transpose. So if I want to add this command, I can just grab that, copy it. And if you prefer, you can grab all of this and put it into a brand new query. Either way is fine. You know, it's whatever works for you. But I do want to show that we compact the query builder. So in order to create a new line, you do what we call a soft return, which is hold down your shift and then press enter. And it'll create a new line wherever your cursor's at. So if I keep holding down my shift and pressing enter, it's going to create all these new lines. But obviously, we're trying to minimize the query builder so that you can maximize what you're seeing in the histogram and in the tabs down below. So now that I've used the shift enter to create a new line, I can just paste it in. And there I have my transpose operator. Now notice that I only have the one status code, right? So now when I run this again by clicking start or enter, now I have all of those showing across the columns. So I can actually see for this time 14 minutes past the hour, I can see that I got this many 200s, 18 302s, 45 304s. Where they're blank, that means null or 0. So that's what the blank ones mean. Also notice that it now put it in chronological order. Our system will run the fastest that it can. And so whenever you click start, like on last 15 minutes, it'll just run them. But if you're using one of these sorting commands like transpose, it will actually put them into chronological order for you. So you have a choice there. Do you need speed of the query or do you need chronological order? And you know, in some cases, it doesn't change it dramatically. So you would kind of have to play around with that and see how that affects whatever query you're working on. But as a best practice, you probably want to group them using something like the transpose command. And then now that we have our data, it's looking pretty good. So the next thing is probably let's create a visual from that data, right? So we have a query that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and chart it. So when you have the aggregate tab, you actually have all these chart options, and we're going to go and play around with this lab says suggest the bar chart. You can use the bar or the line graph, and you can play around with some of the other ones too. We'll kind of click through them, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at it with the create the chart. So go back here. How do you create a chart? Is right now, if you see here where I'm at, in the kind of the middle right, you're in the table format. So right here, it says table when you hover over it. When you're in the table format, you can export a .csv if you'd like to. Just takes a second, depending on how much data you have, but just takes a second. Mine goes right to a numbers, so you can see the .csv. So you can export when you're in the table format a .csv. Then moving over, you can start just playing, click on any of these charts. These are bars, obviously, and then a line graph, and then an area chart. And this is a donut, or you can make it a pie graph. All of these that you click on, like this one is a statistical, so we don't have any stats in this one. In this query, there's no stats, so it's not going to produce anything. The ones that are grayed out, you have to use certain commands, and we'll play around with the map one here in the next lab or so. And this is a total number. So if you want the total number, and then this one is the data flow. And we teach that in Search Mastery if you're interested in data flow. It's nice for tracking something through your system, so that shows the data flow. Now just use one of the bar charts. I'm just going to use the vertical one. If I look at my data visually, and I can even hide the histogram to make it bigger, or you can click on this expander underneath the histogram and make it even larger. So when you're working on charts, you might want to use this little expander here to make it bigger. So if I click on that and make it a little bit bigger, now I can see that I have my largest quantity is those 200s when I hover over it, right? Well, those are successes, and I just want to monitor exceptions, right? So I'm going to turn off those 200s. And then the 304s, those are also good results. So I'm going to turn off those successes also. Now I can get to that granularity because my y-axis has now expanded enough to get down into that granularity where I can see what's going on with all my other status codes. So this is probably more the visual that I want to create. But I don't want people to have to manually click on things, right, to create that visual. So I'm going to re-enable them by clicking back over here. All I did was click on the value here to turn them on or off, by the way, just in case you didn't see that. So what I want to do is I want to actually customize the query. So if I go down a little bit more in this, I want to actually always make sure that I remove my 200s and my 304s. So I want to basically use Boolean functionality with a where filter. So that's what this line is all about. Let's break it down because I know it's a lot. If you remember your math class, you always start with what's in the parentheses, right? So we're going to start here. And notice that we have an or between them. So here, just like the end is the Boolean function or, and then you can also see the not out here. So we have those three functions from Boolean logic, right? So the or is a combiner just like the end, but it says it'll take any from this or from that. So that means if the status code equals a 200 or the status code equals a 304, okay? And then in front of the parentheses, notice that we've grouped those with the parentheses and we have a not sign. So that means this whole thing is negated, right? So we're not status code equals 200 or 304. So we need to always put these where filters as close to the top scoping line. We call this the scoping line because it gives us the scope of the data by this part. So we want to always put these wheres as close to that. We have to put it just below the parse statement because we don't get the status code until here in the parse. So this is where we're going to insert it, is right after the parse. So you can either copy this here or copy that, or once again, you can copy the whole thing and throw it into a new query. I like to show it piecemeal just so that you get the idea of inserting into the query. So I go back to my query. I go back to my, click on my expander so I can see the query again. Just this little guy here I'm toggling, by the way. And then I come up here and I want to put it after the parse. So I can either click here or I can click here, either one, to create a new line. Hold down my shift, press enter to create the new line, and then go back to that new line and paste it in. And there I have inserted into the code. So use the soft return, holding down the shift and pressing enter. Now, I've re-enabled all my 200s and 304s, so you'll see the change. So when I click start, now it will eliminate, because I'm now saying filter out all those incoming logs that had status codes of 200s or 304s. And so I no longer see them. And now I have a visual that I want to use for my dashboard. All right, so my visual down here, I can do further customizations by using the settings icon. Just note that you have all these different things, like if I wanted to go in and change the look and feel of this, we play around with that in other training, so I won't get into a lot of detail of playing around with it. But this is one that I think is really popular, colors by value range, because sometimes you want to show anything greater than 30, right? Would maybe have a significant, maybe put that in red, or, if you want to use color to accentuate it. But what we're going to do in this lab is we're going to go ahead and add it how it is to the dashboard. So do you see right here, it says add to dashboard. So if you would click on that, add to dashboard. And now it's going to ask us for a panel name. So I'm going to go down here and, oh, I'm sorry. We're actually in the next lab, lab 4. I got ahead. So click on lab 4. So we're going to go in lab 4. We're going to add to dashboard. Okay, so we clicked on that. Now we have this pop-up. All right, so add to dashboard, and then you'll get this pop-up. So what you want to do with this is we're going to create a new dashboard. You're going to give it a panel name and a dashboard name. And the reason why we're creating a brand new dashboard is so that you can actually see what that looks like, creating a brand new dashboard in this tool. So if I go back now to my UI, I'm going to give it a name. You can call it whatever you want. It's just going to be in your dashboard, so you can call it your own name if you want to. But I'll just give it something a little memorable. I'll call it Apache status codes. And then the dashboard name, this is whatever unique identifier you want to give it. Notice, however, when I click into it, do you see all the lookup? This is our easy look ahead that I mentioned before that will allow you to just click on something. Now, if you don't have privileges, you have to have privileges in order to edit these other dashboards. But you do have access to all the dashboards in the system if you wanted to just add to an existing dashboard, for example. But for this lab, we're going to create a brand new dashboard. I'm just going to use my initials for my dashboard. I'm just going to call it JS dashboard 08, just to have something a little unique, so I can see it in my account. Then it just wants me to confirm that name of the dashboard. So I go ahead and confirm it. And now here you have a choice. You can use create dashboards new or use our defaults. Now the lab is based around using the default, okay? So in this case, all the rest of the instructions is going to be around using the default. So I will teach it by not toggling this on. But if you toggle this on, then you would go to the blue dashboard. We have both green and blue dashboards. The green are what I'll call classic dashboards, and the new dashboards are the blue ones that we released about a year back. Eventually, we will move everything to the blue dashboards, is my understanding, but we still have the greens because there's some functionality that still needs to be created in the blue. All right, so you have a couple of options with dashboards. So personal folder, we'll just go ahead and let it default to our personal folder and just click add. And now it is saving this into a dashboard, and you can see now it's opened up a green. And with the green, we're going to go through the rest of the lab. Those of you that might want to see the blue, just in case you want to see that, go back to your search and just go ahead and click add to dashboard again. And if you want to see, give it some name again, I'll just leave mine as search for and give it another name, JS09 dashboard. Click on that. And now I'm going to toggle to create the new dashboard and click add. So I'm just showing you both, just so you can see that both go in. The way that you interact with these is slightly different for what we're doing in this lab. So the green one is what I'll continue with, but I just wanted to show you that you have access to both dashboards. And there is documentation if you're concerned about which dashboard should I use. There is some functionality that's nice about both, and some of our customers are using them right now interchangeably. So you have a choice there, but eventually we will move everything to the blue. For example, one of the features that's missing in the blue is filtering. So you can see this filter right here, and that allows you to filter on metadata, which is really nice. I'll show that in the next lab. All right, so now what are we going to do next? Now we got our chart here. Let's add one more panel in here so that we have something to kind of play, you know, to interact with it. So if you come to the more actions here, these 3 vertical dots, click on those, and then you'll see add panel. Okay, add panel. So click on that. And then we're going to create a text panel. So just click on text, give it some title, whatever you want to call it. I like to pretend like I'm doing a war room for like some content delivery network at a broadcasting company that I used to do in my past. And we used to have, you know, communications in a book, but rather than, you know, communicate through different shifts of the operators, it'd be nice to actually have a panel that does that. So I'll just call this shift communications, shift comm. And you don't have to use my example, but I'm just creating something that might have a little bit of meaning. And here I might want to note that backups, running long on whatever it is, Okta. And I might want to say something about I will be 30 minutes late tomorrow, you know, put my name in here so they'll know that's me. And then I submit it. It'll create that text panel. Now I have at least a couple panels. So all I did once again is I went here, added the panel, typed in some stuff and saved it, right? Submitted it. Now what's nice is I'm in the edit mode. Whenever you see done editing, that means it's in the edit mode. You can toggle between them. If you see the pencil, that means it's treating it like now it's a dashboard. You are no longer in edit mode. So you have to click on the pencil to get back into edit mode. Now, when you're in edit mode, you can actually move things around. Like maybe I want to train my operators that this will always be in the left and this other information will be off to the side. Maybe I might want to make this a little bigger so they can type more and then just make this accordingly a little bit larger, maybe a little wider too. So you can customize, you could drag things around just how you want, just by point and click. Now, the other thing I like to show people, there's a lot of other features in here, but the ones that we have time for today is I love to show toggle theme. And when I did the demo, you notice it had a dark background. So you can toggle theme right here. You have to be in edit mode. If you're not in edit mode, you won't see it. So you have to have toggled. If you're in the pencil mode, you won't see it, for example. You'll see other things. So you got to be in done editing, and then you'll see toggle theme. And you go between the light or the dark background. All right. And you can do all this same stuff that we're doing back here in the blue, just to highlight that. You know, you can add a panel. You know, it just looks a little bit different. And eventually we'll be doing more teaching on that in other trainings. So you'll be seeing that a little bit more. All right, so that is adding a panel and creating that and changing the look and feel of the dashboard. We played around with moving things around. That's what all this is about. All right, so the last thing in here is about sharing. Now, I already showed sharing, so I'm just going to point it out up here at the top, but not go through it. But here's your share. So up here, there's usually more than one way to share. You remember that we showed to share by going to these 3 vertical dots in the navigation panel over here, and then clicking on it and clicking share. It does the same thing. So you can also share by clicking on this icon over here. And then you'll have the share information. The one thing that's a little bit different about this is you do get the shareable URL inside the dashboard. And the reason why is because with dashboards, if you're not familiar with our system, you can actually share dashboards with people that don't have a Sumo account. You can actually share with people that have that have access to certain dashboards. So you can, it's up to you. You can do these allow lists in our RBAC controls so that you can share just inside your organization and keep it all, you know, integral to your own company. Or you can, maybe you have partners, maybe you even want to share some dashboards with customers or whoever it might be. So we have these shareable URL links that you can certainly copy and use outside of our sharing within here. So just wanted to give you that. And you can block this too. If you're an IT person going, oh, I know this course is a security conference. If you're sitting there going, I don't want to share dashboards outside, you can block that. That's all in the admin. So no worries with the policies that you can set up. All right. And I know we'll be doing an admin training later this month. So feel free to come back for one of those if you can. So now where does that leave us? That takes us, I believe, to Lab 5. Lab 5 is where we're going to modify a dashboard. Do you remember that app that you downloaded back, the Apache app that we downloaded in Lab 1? I know it's a while ago now, but that app, we're going to go back to it. We're going to find it, and then we're going to make a modification. We have this one map in here that actually shows the world, and we're going to just zero in on we're going to modify the query to zero in on just a particular country. Just a particular country. So this is the overall of this lab is going to teach you that you can use our out-of-the-box apps and customize them and to your liking, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and go through this. First thing is we're going to go and find that Apache overview in our personal folder, the one that has your initials, okay? So if I go back to Sumo and I go to my personal folder, I got to get rid of that. That blocks me. Go back to my personal folder. And I used, I think, JS08. Hopefully you wrote down or you remember what you used. Find that Apache, click on it, and find your Apache overview again. Now mine's actually still open over here, but so when I click on it, it's just gonna, you know, use that tab. All right, so did everybody get their Apache overview? All right. Okay, I see that there's, I don't see the share icon. Is it new or old UI? Oh, yeah, you
I was
possibly
asking
were in a
if
blue.
with his own dashboard, just so that we
Yeah.
can be sure about access levels.
Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so I'll just continue. All right, so now that you have your Apache overview open from the one you downloaded in Lab 1, so make sure it's that one, otherwise you won't have permissions to do these edits. Now what we want to do is we want to actually go and modify this visitor's locations. Right now, if you take a look at it, mine's showing everything across the world. What if we wanted to just modify it so it just shows a particular country? And we got some data for the United States, so we'll use that for our lab. While I'm in here, before we start doing the query, might want to point out a couple of things. The filters that I was talking about right now, they're in the green dashboard. So this might be one of the features. If you're interested, you would use the filters, but you can see that the filter capability allows you to then, in this case, we have one metadata called web server farm, and it allows you to select the highlight over the asterisk, and you can actually select different things. Now this one only has one, so we're going to have to build up this example for training, but you can see that you can filter, and then everything would switch at the dashboard level. All the panels would switch to whatever you're filtering on. So it's basically a pivoting tool that allows you to filter your dashboard display. And you can also do it at the dashboard level, and that's in the green. So if I go back to the green one, you can filter at the dashboard level, at the panel level. So here you have the dashboards and the panel level. In the blues, we only have the dashboard level at this time. So I just wanted to kind of show that's one of the differences, for example. There's some other things, but that's one of the differences. All right, so you guys ready to go in and change this? What we're gonna do in this lab is we're gonna click on these more action, the 3 vertical dots right here, and we're going to go into edit mode. This will open up the query in edit mode. Now, what the lab wants us to do is put in a where filter. And as a best practice, we always want to put those where filters as close to the scoping line. So here's the where filter. If you go down to step 3 in this lab 5, step 3, you'll want to copy this. That's what we're going to use. We want to insert it. So here's what the full query looks like. We want to insert it as close to the scoping line. But the problem is that we have to insert it after we get the country name, because that's what we're trying to filter on, is just the United States as a country. So we just want to look at that specific data instead of the whole world. So we're going to use the country name that we extracted in this lookup. So I will walk you through this whole query to explain it. Go ahead and grab that where and copy it. And let's first paste it in, and then we'll go through the query as we do the lab. All right, so where we're going to put in the where is right after this lookup here. So what you can do is go to the end of that line, for example, and hold down your shift and press enter to create a new line. So that's called a soft return, shift to return. And then go ahead and paste it in if you copied it from the lab. So we have it right there. Now we had to put it right there because we don't get the country name until this operator. So let's talk through this query, because I know this query has a lot of new operations in it. So let's talk through it. So this is our pointer at the top to the data. So that's our using, in this case, we're using metadata pointing to specific data that we want to access. So here we're using all of our Apache, and we're also using our web farm. So we're pointing to this particular data source, okay? So we're using the metadata in here, which is another way that you can do it. Just like we use the source category, you can use any key value pair that you've defined in the system to point to the data, which is what we're doing here. After we use those pointers, then we do a JSON parse, and we do several parse regexes. Now, these are all talked more in other training, but just at a very high level, JSON is a construct that gives you structured logs, allows you to parse your structured logs. So we're using those structured log format as a JSON parse. And then these regexes, these 3 down here, that stands for regular expression. And we're basically taking these regular expressions that you see in here and applying them to these custom metadata. So what you're going to see in the results is you're going to see all these metadatas that are parsed out. Then once we've done that, then we want to count up by all our source IPs, and that's what gives us these tallies that we see in the map, is by that count. And remember, you have to aggregate before you can do any visuals, like a map, for example, is a visual chart. So we've done our aggregation, and then the where, we're just testing to make sure that we don't have any blank source IPs. We're filtering those out because they would not appear on the map. We don't want any blank ones to appear on our map. The way our map works is if you have if we don't know the IP, it'll put it like in the middle of the country in a body of water. There's a long story about a legal transaction that happened with that company that all turned out good, but basically they came up with an algorithm that if there was no source IP, then they would put it in the middle of the country in a body of water. So that helps with not pointing out mistakenly some person that doesn't really want it. Yeah.
New metrics question, because I'm looking at the query too, and we were wondering why web server system equals Apache is called twice in the first line. Is that because we're trying to compare 2 values with a web server system equals Apache?
I do not know. This
okay,
is
then we
a
can
new app, but I would have to research that and get back.
Yeah. But I am curious.
Yeah, that is interesting. I do see that. I see that it's repeated. Yeah. Not sure why.
I agree. I'm not sure why either, guys. So good question, but we'll definitely work with the developer on this one and try and understand why they needed to call it twice.
We could actually try taking out one. I see somebody.
Andrew said
that.
Adrian said he
no
already did it.
And it works fine. Yeah, so it might just be a typo. Maybe somebody just did a typo in here and left it in. So anyways, what somebody is saying is they removed one of these and it works just fine. I'll just leave it for right now. I'll test ride that a little bit later. So now what we have here is after we've done the count and we've checked for any blank source IPs, this is the command that you guys haven't seen before. It's called a lookup command. And if you're not familiar with our system, we have several different kinds of lookups. You can look up, in this case, it's a geolocation lookup, and we're looking up any IP address. So we're passing that source IP right here to the IP address, and then looking up that IP address in our online maps database called geolocation. And then we're returning all these different values, and you can change these, you can customize it to whatever you want. These are just the ones we chose for this activity. And one of them is country name. You see that here? So what we did then is we used that country name that was returned, and we're saying, I only want to see where the country name equals to the United States. So that we inserted this. Now we can actually go and save this. So you see the update dashboard right here? Wait, one more thing. For just right now, to get the refresh, if I just click the update dashboard, it would still show me the whole world map. But if you want it to zero in, you need to toggle this cluster to heat map, okay? And then back to cluster. And then it will update to just the United States and zero in on the US. So then I click update dashboard, and now it's updating it back in the panel. Oh, I guess I didn't quite get it. Let me try that again. Edit. Heat map cluster. I mean, it did show me just the United States data, but I expected, oh, there it went. It zeroed in on it. Of course, I'm in the heat map. Let me toggle it back. Back to cluster. So right here, I'm just choosing between the chart types and updating it. So now I have just the world. I think that's just our toggling so that you can see it. Instead of looking at the whole world, you can look at it through just that country and just focus on. And if you wanted to leave it that way, you didn't have to do that clustering toggle that I was doing, and it would still show you the whole world, but just the data in the US would be shown. And play around with our maps if you haven't already. You know, they're very nice, you know, to actually go in and where you see the fuzzies, that allows you to get more data and to pan around. So that is basically everything in this lab. Now what I'd like to do is go on to lab 6. We're almost wrapped up here and we're a little bit past the 2-hour mark. So I'll try to get us through this last lab. The plan for me is I usually do lab 6 with you. It'll probably take about 4 or 5 minutes. And then get help I kind of leave to you guys to do if you want to, or as a reference lab to answer any questions in the certification. But I'll at least point to where that is. So if you would get to lab 6, create an alert. So when you are not being able to monitor dashboards, right, which we spent a bit of time on playing around with dashboards, you might want to create an alert, right? So that when you get notifications sent to you. So what we want to do is we're going to create an alert for our visitor locations that we've been playing around with in this last lab. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the visitors location panel, and we're going to click on open in search, just like this. And then once we have it open in search, then we're going to do the save as that's below. All right, so the first thing is back in the UI, go to your visitors locations panel, click on your 3 vertical dots or action buttons, and then open in search. Now that it's open in search, we're going to do a save as. Do you see where I'm at? Right below the query builder, there's a save as. We saw this before, but we didn't play around with this, this aspect of it for creating an alert, which I'm showing you now. So click on that. Now we kind of talked through naming it and description and all that and where it's saved to in your personal folder, but we didn't click on the schedule the search. That's how you set up an alert. So we're going to go click on schedule the search. Now you'll see that right now it's set to a run frequency of never by default because there's no alert. So click on that drop down, and then you'll see you have various options. Some of them can be very helpful, and if you don't find the one that you want, you can always create a custom cron. for any time that you want. Go ahead and pick one that we have in here, like every 15 minutes or real time, choose one of those. Once you choose a run frequency, then it expands into additional options that you can scroll and take a look at. It will have the time range for the scheduled search. So you can modify this if you would like. It's using the time range that I had in that query originally, but you can modify it if you want. You can change the time zone if you prefer. Maybe you're customizing for different geographical areas, and so you might want to change the time zone. Just using these drop downs is how you would select the different time zones, for example. And then if I come down, you can see that it's going to send a notification every time the search is complete. There is a further customization, like if you're using outliers and it's showing, maybe you might want to have that it has at least 3 outliers before, so a certain condition is met. So you can also do further kind of finessed, but for this lab, you can just leave it as every time a search is complete. We play around with this a little bit more in Search Mastery training. Now come down to the alert types. You'll see that it defaults to email, and it's pretty clear below that it'll send an email. You can type in recipients, like if I want to send this to my boss, I can put in recipients in here. I can put in roles if I want to send it to a group of people. I can define a title so that people will recognize that alert, right? Customize it and train people on recognizing it. And different things that you can include down to if you're waking them up overnight, you might want to do the CSV attachment, right? So that they don't have to jump on their computer immediately. They can look at some actual data, right? So now the email is one option. If you go back up to the email, do you see the drop down? Click on that, the drop down. There are more than one way to set up an alert. You can also do a script action. So for those of you, we just announced SOAR, capability that we have. So you might want to do automation, right? So the script actions would allow you to maybe go to a Lambda script for Amazon or something like that, where you could do some automation. Some of you might not be familiar, but we have ServiceNow embedded in our tool. So this gives you the ServiceNow connection. So if you want to send it to the ServiceNow. Webhook was the one that I showed in the demo, the Slack. So that would send it to any of the webhooks. By the way, if you click on webhook, you do have to have your connections defined. So you can see the ones that we have in the training environment, for example, but you would have to have webhooks set up in your system. Moving on from webhooks, we also have save to an index that's like a lookup database. So you can save it there and then maybe come back with some algorithm that does something with those those alerts. And this last one is save to lookup. So just like this is a lookup table, you could actually save it in a database that will actually allow you to access it through a lookup. That might make it a little bit easier to find those alerts that have occurred in the system. So those are the 6 different ways that you can set up alerts. And after you've chosen one, you can save it. I'm going to go ahead and cancel. But if you did save it, the rest of the lab talks about where you would go to look that up. So down here at the bottom, the very bottom, if you wanted to, you would go back into edit to turn off the alert. You would go into edit and then edit the search schedule and put it back to never. So if you wanted to turn it off, that's how you would turn it off. And if you go here to our Sumo UI to get to alerts, the manage data, click on manage data and you'll see alerts there. And you can click on that and you can see, you can also manage your alerts through this interface. So that brings us to everything that we wanted to cover in fundamentals to get certified in Sumo is what I'm going to talk about next. I'll right now assume that Stacy's been answering all the questions, but I'm going to go on and explain how you
bore us to the docs for as far as when alerts actually trigger. So the question was around alerts being dispatched when there are 0 results.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you gave him a reference. Okay.
I'm about to
All
paste
right,
one in.
Okay. All right, well, continue to keep the questions coming, even while people getting certified, we don't mind. I'll be actively monitoring. Stacy might need to drop off, but I'll be actively monitoring. But data analytics, I do want to point out, this is the best practices, because I know a lot of you came to data fundamentals because you wanted to make sure that when you're designing these queries, that you're putting them in a best practice. So around slide 27 in your deck, you should see this query syntax, and then there's several slides after it that go through details of each aspect. But you can see that the first thing is always have your scoping line, then to parse, and then after parsing, then you might want to filter, might want to do some more refinement. You're further, think of it like a funnel, you're further funneling down your data so that it's less data for it to have to aggregate with like this count command. So then you aggregate, and then the last thing to think about is always formatting. We use that transpose command that formatted our results, and these are a couple of other ones, sort and limit, that are also formatting, which are important, even though they're just formatting, somebody might say, but you know, getting your data to look how you want it, sometimes we spend a lot of time on that. You get 90% done with your query, and then you spend a lot of time just getting that format. So we want you to just realize that that's kind of a best practice, is to make sure that you take formatting considerations in at the end, filtering out whatever you want and using those commands. So you might want to reference this. It might be helpful when you're getting certified. And I want to encourage you to go and go ahead and get certified. If you need to take a little 5-minute break and then come back, that's fine. But let me show you how to get into the certification before you might do that. And I will stay here on the line while you guys work on your certifications. So let me get to how to get into the assessment and all. So let's make this a little bit bigger so it's easier on your eyes. The assessment is, well, this isn't right. It's 20 plus, it's actually 30 questions. You'll be asked 30 questions. I don't know why that one's in here. Let me back out. Do I got the wrong thing? All right, I don't know, but it's 30. Here, let me just change it. 30, not 30 plus, it's 30 exactly. All right, so 30 questions, 60 minutes to take it. It is a time test. You'll have a little clock that runs up in the corner that will help you. So you do want to make sure that you got at least, I would say 30 to 40 minutes to take the test. You'll need a 75% to pass. You get as many retakes as you would like. So you can come back and retake it. Some people will take it, and if they miss it by just a question or two, they just retake it again if they have the time. Open resource, so you can use any of our materials, all right? And with that, how do you get into the certification? So you do not want to use the training environment that we're in to get certified. You do not want to use, so you see right here, not the training account. You can use your own Sumo corporate account if you have one. If you don't, we can also give you the information, and I'll start the poll right now. You don't have to respond to the poll, please, but it has useful information, so I'll go ahead and launch it. But you can do that free trial that's in item B that you see in the free trial. In the poll right now, you'll see free trial as item B. So you can do a free trial, probably takes you about 4 minutes to set it up. And then you can be right in here doing the certification with us. So the way that you get into the certification is through your own Sumo account or a free trial, then click on the little house up here at the top, click certification tab, and then click in the middle of the page where it says get certified. And then basically you just follow the instructions. I'll walk you through it. I'll do it at least once so that people can see it. And then you can queue it up, and don't click start assessment if you want to take like a little 2-minute break, 5-minute break, and then come back and start the assessment. Most people finish this in about 30 to 40 minutes is what I've seen, but we do give 60 minutes because it depends. All right, and then if you find that when you click on that and you cycle back, that's in item A in the poll. So don't feel like you have to be in a rush to respond to the poll right away. You might want to kind of read through all of them and see what would work best for you. But if you click on that get certified and it loops you back, then you need to follow step A. And this is kind of a slide showing some of our folks have not done their email verification due to single sign-on. It skips that. So you might need to just take a couple minutes, verify your email address. All right, so let me go ahead and demonstrate. Let's go back to the UI. Make sure you're in an account with your name. Sumo free trial, for those of you, I don't want to leave you guys behind just in case you came today and you're like, well, I don't have a Sumo account and I'd like to get certified because it does last for 2 years, our fundamentals, it's the longest one. So Sumo Logic, and then type free trial. And it should take you right to our Sumo Logic sign up right there. And I will paste that into the chat. So now that everybody has a way of creating an account, okay, if you don't have a corporate account, I'll go back and walk you through. So you're going to click on the house, then you're going to click on certification, and then you're going to click on get certified. So house, certification, get certified. If you're using a training analyst account, it will not count toward your certification. So I don't want you to waste your time. So please make sure that you use a corporate account or a free trial. And if you're using a free trial, we'll track that in our database. And it doesn't matter if you get a corporate account down the road at any company, we'll move it for you. So don't worry about that. Then once I click the get certified, if I click and I don't come in, that means I need to verify my email address. So real quick, I'll just demonstrate. I'll go back to the UI. If I didn't get in, I need to come back here and I go to help and then click community. Help community will send a verification link email to your inbox and just follow the directions of that. And I'll put in a frequently asked questions into the chat about certification. That will be helpful to you guys here in a moment. All right, so I clicked get certified, house, certification, get certified, and I came right into my Sumo. Fundamentals is a course that you just took. So you want to do this certification right here in the light blue with the 3 people around the computer. All right, so 4 courses. If you click on it, the course that you want to probably take the exam would be the English version right here. But of course, I don't know if you're fluent in Japanese or Espanol, please don't hesitate to try those. This is our self-paced training. We have several pretty much most of our courses are self-paced also as an offering. So feel free to do self-paced when our schedule doesn't jive with yours down the road. But click on fundamentals exam. I'll click on the English version, this one. Then it's going to ask me to register. Mine just says resume because I've already registered. So you click on that registration. Then you'll want to do the README. And then when you click on this, to get into the exam, this is your clock up here. It's not going to start counting down until you click start assessment. And then you would just, when you're ready, click start assessment and go ahead and start taking the exam. And you can skip questions. Just make sure that you come back and have a response for all the questions, because you're not penalized if it's if it's left blank, you're going to get it wrong. So I would guess. Or reach out to me. I'll be hanging out for you guys. All right, so give me any feedback that you guys have through the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat. Like I said, Stacy might have to go. Say bye, Stacy. Thank you for coming, and I will continue to monitor things for you guys. And it's been mine and Stacy's pleasure to provide this training to you today. We just really hope that it was valuable to you. And yeah, Stacy did an awesome job. Good job on everything. And I just want to make sure that you know that if we can help you in any way here at Sumo, we're more than happy to at any time. And good luck on taking the exam. Thank you, everybody.